The PRC says it will not review the recently announced tariffs downwards despite calls from organized labor and utility providers.
We are saying that we have done what is in the interest of the investor, the utility service provider, and the consumer. We are not talking about call for a review. We have done our work. We don't have a stand. The PRC as an independent regulator, we have done our work. We have done it according to the guidelines that has been set for us. And we don't have any stand on what the TUC is doing.
A stern warning to utility providers to rectify all problems associated with their service or face punitive measures. What we're asking is what happens to the committee set up by government to look at the agitations since the commission's mind is made up. This is today's big story. My name is Bright Nanamfo. Thanks so much for staying there. The Organized Labor Union is currently waiting on the report set up by government to look at its agitations on the tariff increment and advise possible review. The committee is expected to present its report by the close of today, that's October 22, 2030. Now, interestingly, the PRC is indifferent. Its mind is made up on whether to review the tariff increases or not.
Saying that we have done what is in the interest of the investor, the utility service provider, and the consumer, and looking at the economic development of the country. Because looking back, we can say that we went through a load shedding period, and how much we spent on other alternative sources of energy didn't bring any economic development. So this is what PRC has done. For now, this is what the PRC has done to cover operations and maintenance for the utility service provider. That's a serious position. We don't have a stand. The PRC as an independent regulator, we have done our work. We have done it according to the guidelines that has been set for us. And we don't have any stand on what the TUC is doing. They have a position. They are a group, and that is their position. And we don't have any stand on it.
But the commission, however, says beginning January 2014, it will apply the automatic adjustment formula to review the tariffs in order to satisfy all parties.
Saying that come January 2014, we are implementing the automatic adjustment formula. I mean, from everything that we have seen, we have the gazetted tariffs. A gazette is a law. You can't lie about a law. And we've given you the timetable that we have gazetted the tariffs over the period from 2010 to 2012. Of course, in 2012, there were challenges with the West Africa gas pipeline. And we couldn't even do the automatic adjustment formula. Because before you do everything, you have to have some cost drivers, you have to have some indicators. At that time, gas wasn't coming in, and what were the indicators we were going to use? In January 2013, we used automatic adjustment formula to do a tariff, a full LTO tariff, and we got 120%. We got 120%. So the point is that in 2012, there was no way we could have done the automatic adjustment formula. But before that, we actually applied the automatic adjustment formula. And the automatic adjustment formula is not always meant to increase tariffs. Sometimes, depending on the parameters, depending on the dynamics out there, it can come down, it can stay where it is, or it could increase. If you listen to the press statement, we said even at a point, we used it to penalize the utilities.
What does this mean, especially when we're waiting on the technical committee set up by government to advise it on whether to review or not to review? Let me speak to Mr. Kofi Ellis. He is a member of that committee, but he is the Director of Monitoring and Planning with the Volta River Authority. Mr. Ellis, thanks so much for your time. And first of all, let me find out, you're working hard to advise government on the recent tariff increases. How would you react to the fact that the PRC today has come out to say that it will not review downwards the tariffs?
Well, I think it's a bit premature for me to address these matters because the committee is still working. and the committee hasn't finished its work. That's what I'm talking to you, and the committee is still working. So I think it should be quite, it's not right for me to make statements on the committee's work at this time. I don't think it's right.
Right, but we're not talking about what a committee perhaps is deliberating on, but the issue is that the PRC has just come out to say that it will not review downwards the tariffs. Now, the committee is working at advising government. This piece of information from the PRC, does it come as a blow, perhaps, to the work you're doing?
Well, I don't think it takes anything away. I'm like, the PRC is mandated to set tariffs, and they set their tariffs. So I think it is fair that they are given that opportunity to try kind of drive their responsibility. That's fine. But the issue is that government wants to be advised on the upcoming issues. And that's exactly what the committee is doing. And I'm saying that as long as the committee hasn't finished its work, it will be quite premature to start commenting on it.
Exactly. We do not even want to bring in the committee here, but we're looking at it from the point of view of the PRC. Now, you earlier said that...
Have you called PRC on this matter?
PRC says that it will not review downwards the tariffs. It has got
a point. And I don't think it's for me to say what they said is right or wrong, or they should do this or that. They made their statement. Let's hold their statement like that and respect that statement. The rest of the work is done to be picked up at the right time.
And you're not worried by the fact that you're working to advise the government, particularly on whether to review the tariffs or not. And then the authority that has the power to review the tariff says, I am not going to review the tariffs downwards. You're not worried at all?
Well, if I say it's not worrying stuff, well, that would be as if one is pretending that everything is fine. I mean, we are trying to put our heads together to see how this issue will be resolved. You shouldn't forget that it's not as if whatever tariff we've got as DRA is the best of tariffs. It's always stated that the tariffs we've got were not good tariffs. It doesn't cover our costs. So we are all trying to sit around the table with the other stakeholders who are also saying that the tariffs are too high to come to a general agreement. Whatever PRC has said, it's not different from the statement that they've issued out already. They've stated their tariffs. And they are sticking to their tariffs. And that's one of the starting points of the committee's work. So what is there to be afraid of?
And so the fact is that the committee might end up perhaps working at nothing, because the authority in charge of the tariff says, I am not reducing the tariffs. I am not reviewing it downwards. And the committee's work perhaps might end up bringing out nothing.
So I can comment on that. I've told you already. It's that I can comment on. I know you have your fear that it's going to kind of throw some kind of metals into the job that we are doing. But that is the fear that you have. But as I'm saying, the committee is doing its work, and until it finishes, I cannot make any statement on this matter.
Thank you so much for speaking to Kofi Ellis. Is Director of Planning at the VRA, and is a member of the committee, the technical committee set up by government to take a second look at new tariffs recently announced by the Public Utility Regulatory Commission there. Now, the Commission says, I am not going to reduce the tariffs downwards. That from the Public Utility Regulatory Commission. Let me speak to Peter Amewu. He is the African Center for Policy, Energy Policy there, and he's a director in charge of policy and research. Mr. Amewu, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, and good evening to your listeners, please.
Thank you, Mr. Amewu. Now, first of all, let's begin from here. Now, government says it has set up a technical committee to take a second look at the tariffs, the newly announced tariffs. Now, the PRC today is out and says that it is not going to reduce the tariffs downwards. Let me pick your reaction first.
Well, I think it's important for Ghanaians to take note that what is important for you and I is we want our light on as and when we need it. And we want the light on, and therefore we would be prepared to pay realistic prices for, the tariff. There are difficulties forward when we refuse, to abide by the current terms in terms of the tariff that is brought by the Public Utility Regulatory Commission. The difficulties are that if you refuse to adjust by the current regime, we will see our light off as being witnessed in 2012. Those repetitions will come across our way. And so I think that it's important for us to accept the current increase, no matter how difficult it is, and try to do a bit of demand-side management on how we use our utilities in terms of electricity. Always those days when you always have to call on supply to live up to the expectation of demand. Demand must also meet the adjustment of supply. And so we should do a bit of demand management if we feel the tariffs we are paying are quite expensive.
You can quickly do a recall and see the clamoring for a reduction by organized labor. We have seen demonstrations in Tema already. As we're talking now, some section of organized labor is wearing red armbands, indicating that they are still protesting the tariff increment. Now, PRC says, I'm not reducing it. This is worrying, but you are saying that we should pay realistic tariffs.
Yeah, you see, what is important is if the tariffs are high, based on which we are saying we cannot pay, the question we need to ask ourselves is what we want to pay. Would that make the utility companies place them in a position that will make them to deliver the services that we require? Otherwise, going forward, PRC will say, well, let me reduce the tariff. The utility companies will therefore not be in the good position to render the services that is required of them. And the difficulties will be you getting to your homes without your lights on. Factories will not have the necessary energy to power their industrial equipment and will be thrown into darkness. And so the difficulty for me is we need as Ghanaians to evaluate the circumstances that brought us to this current position and try to avoid the reoccurrence of the present circumstances. That is the way we look at it.
Right.
We should.
Mr. The organized labor is not saying that we can't pay. It is simply saying that we need to stagger the increment. 78.9 for electricity, 50% plus for water. It says, can we stagger these increases? Is it possible?
Well, the staggering of the payment is an alternative, but as to whether that will make the balance sheet of these companies, more attractive to undertake further investment. Don't forget, investment within the industry is needed. Generation requirements are about 10% per annum. And so what is needed for the next year is almost about 200 megawatts of power, which we need to start today. Construction of power plant takes about 2 to 3 years. And so if you refuse to pay this tariff that will enable new generation of plants to come on board, by next year, next 2 years, when we require demand has gone up and we need more supply, the difficulty will be the position we find ourselves in 2012, 2030. And so, yes, it's good to probably stagger the payment, but as to how that staggering of payment will enable the company to be able to live up to expectations. Don't forget, DRA for 2010, 2011 had not undertaken any investment project. This was as a result of lack of finances in terms of the generation that comes along based on which we pay our tariff. And so if we want to weaken the utility companies, we as well as refuse paying the tariff and allow the utility companies to die and will be in darkness. So it's an alternative for Ghanaians to decide. And we think seriously at the center that it is time Ghanaians must bite the bullet and pay a realistic tariff for us to have our lights on.
And so you think that, for instance, from the point you're making, government decision to even take a second look at the tariff increment by setting up a technical committee is totally wrong from the point you're making.
Yes, it's totally wrong. You see, that is what we call regulatory capture. Government has no role in intervening in the regulatory decision. If the PRC feels this is a tariff that is suitable for the sector for which, we need to pay, government coming in is political, and this is what we've been doing. For the past 3 years, government refused to increase tariffs because of political action. And the same action is what we are going to witness now. If government comes in again and force PRCs to reduce its tariffs, these political actions will lead us into a difficulty that will be very, very difficult for us to come out. And so I think that it is not necessary for government to intervene. Government should leave the regulator to operate as an independent regulator and stop the action of capturing the regulator position. If we don't stop that, our difficulties forward cannot be concluded in any positive manner as of today.
Now, government is perhaps listening to organized labor, the agitations, the call on it to get the PRC to reduce the tariffs. And then it says the technical committee should go ahead and look at which way to support the consuming public. Now, do you think that perhaps the technical committee might not come up with a solution in reducing tariffs, but could also end up with another way in supporting consumers?
Well, I think the only way the technical committee can come up with supporting consumers is, one, to advise consumers on the way they use their electricity. Number two, to also advise the generators on the generation mix. We always say that in Ghana, we use large proportion of hydro vis-a-vis against our combined cycle turbines, which sometimes uses light crude. And so we need to migrate away from that crude to a blend of a light and a heavy crude. That again can reduce costs. If we are not able to reduce costs at generation, there is no way you can reduce costs at the penalty. And so reduction of costs must start along the value chain, the commencement point of the value chain, right down to the penalty. But if you are fighting for reduction in tariff while generation costs are increasing, then of course we will not allow the utility to perform its mandated role. So we should try to reduce costs right down at the generation point.
What do you make of the fact, the concerns being raised by some energy experts, that government will need to find capital and inject into generation? Now, government should not wait for tariff increases before injecting capital into the whole system. Government should fix that, and then perhaps it can go ahead to talk about the tariff increment.
The difficulty about that is that, to go on construction of a new power plant, you need what we call an off-taker agreement. There must be that buyer who is responsible to buy the power when you produce the power based on a certain rate, which you call the tariff. Now, if you go and invest in generation and you have a difficulty as you are witnessing now, consumers are not prepared to pay the tariff, that enables you to undertake that investment decision, then of course your investment is run down. And so it's not important for government to go into generation. What is important is that the sector must be liberalized, as we see, and competition must be introduced in generation, so that independent power generators will have a freedom in entering the market, produce power, and sell to whoever is capable of buying the power. They should not always sell power to EPG, but there must be a competition such that other bulk distributors can come forward and buy the power from those generators and sell in the market. That can only work when the price and the tariff is attractive for investment to come on board.
And the concern that now if you go ahead and continue to charge these new tariffs, perhaps a lot of people might engage in illegal means of extending power to their homes.
That is not an excuse. That is a regulatory issue. There must be command and control measures to make sure that power theft doesn't exist. That cannot be used as an excuse of raising tariffs.
But can increasing tariffs help us to get rid of this kind of illegal means of getting electricity and water into our homes?
Not at all. Increasing tariff alone cannot do that.
Yeah,
efficiency, you cannot achieve that level. And so even if you increase tariff, the regulators and the utility companies might be able to operate a certain level of efficiency. Otherwise, they increase tariff next year, things get poorer, and they come back to us and ask for tariff increment. And that is why we are very happy that there have been some benchmarks that have been set. For instance, transmission losses are 3.5%, distribution loss is about 21%. These benchmarks are to be observed by all consumers, and so that if the utility companies are not living up to that, they should be penalized through the tariff system, and that will make them to live up to expectations.
These benchmarks, have they really worked? Mr. Mewu, they have been there all the time, but they have not worked.
I think largely they will work, considering the structure that is being put forward now. We should be able to monitor that they should work. I don't understand why they should not work. You're supposed to generate, and if you generate, your distribution losses are supposed not to go beyond 21%. There must be a mechanism to make sure that these things have been monitored. What we suggest is that the TRC needs certain expertise and experts in terms of the energy sector that should be employed. Their capacity needs to be brought up, and so that they should be able to monitor some of these things. I think that monitoring the benchmark is very easy, and it can be undertaken by the TRC.
Now, we're being told that pay the new tariffs and will bring you that efficiency in utility service. Now, a World Bank report that came out a couple of months ago clearly stated that management, for instance, of the ECG is a very, very important factor. The board, getting the right caliber of persons to run the board and the management is as important as perhaps paying the right tariffs. Are we not pushing the whole thing on paying the right tariffs whilst the caliber of persons on the board and with the management are not up to task when it comes to providing effective and efficient service?
I agree with you perfectly. The workforce in terms of output, efficiency in terms of labor, is equally important as increasing of tariff. So the two of them must go along. You can't increase tariff where we have a lot of people working that are not really delivering to expectation of the utility company. So it is important as we increase output, we must begin to measure some of these service companies based on their performances. And that is why we think that performance index in terms of customer satisfaction must be built into the tariff, and such that this tariff will invariably penalize the utility companies if those levels of performances are not achieved. So regulatory agencies should introduce performance index into the tariff as a way of reducing some of these losses, because largely labor lack of productivity also is a loss to these companies in delivering their services.
And so perhaps organized labor is right, because you have only increased the tariffs, but we do not see any other measures in place to ensure that we have a very efficient system running.
No, I think you're getting it wrong. Some of these things are not expected instantly. It's a process, not an event, okay? And so let's pay the tariff and give them the mode of operation 6-7 months, 1 year down the line, and see how the operation goes along. I think this time they are going to live up to expectations, and that is why it is important for Ghanaians to pay the current tariff as we give them the room to operate and monitor their level of performance. And so if within a year they tell us that they are going to come down by a reduction in the distribution losses up to 21%, if they haven't done that as a benchmark indicator, then of course we have reasons to complain. Currently, there is no basis we can complain, because you can't measure them within a 1 week to see whether they are really living up to the transmission losses of 3.5%, distribution losses of 21%. It's too short a time to measure that.
Could we have waited to get some other very important elements in the whole circuit properly fixed? For instance, getting an effective management in place, getting a very good caliber of persons for the board, perhaps before talking about tariff increases?
Well, in arithmetic, we call it commutative property of arithmetic. It's either 1 + 1 gives you 2, or 1 + 2 gives you 3, and 2 + 1 gives you 3. Depending on how you decided to go about it. I think that either way is right. Currently, what is important is to make their balance sheet attractive. If you want their balance sheet to be attractive and for their income statement to reflect some level of profit which can be reinvested, then of course you need that tariff increase first to make the income statement attractive and the balance sheet also attractive. So you can either do that or go back and make sure that get the management in place, give them some performance index, and come back and increase the index. Don't forget that is also cost. Getting correct people in place to deliver would also mean that you need to pay those people very well. And if they don't have the income statement, which is attractive for them to make the payment, neither will work. So I think the most important thing for us now is to do the current strategy, pay the tariff, get the management in place, put in a performance index, and as we observe them along, we will see whether they live up to that target or the benchmark.
Finally, before I let you go, the pressure is on government to reduce the tariff. You know what is happening with the organized labor. You know what is happening on the media. Now, should government heed to the call to reduce the tariffs? Can you paint a picture of perhaps where our utility service providers will be heading towards?
You see, again, for me, it is very difficult when government comes to take, the job of a regulator. A regulator is supposed to be an independent person to operate within the industry. And so when there's a regulatory capture from the side of government, then we have lots of difficulties. I stated earlier on that the current problem we are in now is as a result of government regulatory capture over the PRC, not allowing PRC to increase tariffs over the past 3 years. That has brought us on to this particular position. And so I think government should update itself out of this particular situation and allow the regulator to take decisions that are very useful for the sector.
And you are forecasting doom for the utility service providers if government decides to force PRC to reduce the tariffs.
Definitely, if government intervenes now, there will be doom for the sector. Don't forget, our hydro supply now is expected to weaken as we go forward. By next year, our hydro level in terms of the water level in Akosombo will come down. And Akosombo is noted to be our base load. And if that happens, you're expected to put in more crude to fire some of these generation plants. If we don't have a realistic tariff now to cater for the light crude that we are using, if Akosombo comes down and our water levels are so low that we cannot fire the hydro plant, then the difficulty is that bills will pile up as a result of the use of the light crude, and nobody will be able to pay. And so the way forward is what I've stated earlier on. There is a doom in the future in the sense that hydro will be getting out of power very quickly by next year. And if that happens and we don't have sufficient money available to buy light crude oil to fire our generation plant, then Ghana is going to face some level of difficulty in its power sector.
Let me say thank you so much to Mr. Peter Amewo, Director, Policy and Research of the African Center for Energy Policy, there, talking to me about the issues of utilities. And of course, we'll try hard to get a Deputy Minister of Information and Media Relations, Felix Kwachofosu, to speak to us, especially on government's technical committee that is supposed to take a second look at the utility tariffs, with PRC making that announcement that it will not review the tariffs downwards. This is the first part of the show. The second part is just about to take off, and we'll be talking more about utilities. Perhaps you've been experiencing what a lot of us think it is complete thievery on the part of the ECG. You bought 30 Ghana cedis, you swipe your card, and you have only 19 cedis recording on your prepaid meter. We'll be talking about that particular issue on the second segment of today's Big Story. Thanks so much for staying there. Marianne is joining me soon for the second segment. Please stay right there. Right, welcome back to the second segment, and we're also talking about utilities, and I'm sure you're still stuck in there and hoping to hear some good news from perhaps the ECG. 30 cedis is ending up at 19 cedis. I hear when you buy 10 cedis, you get about 6 cedis. Marianne has just joined me. Is that the situation around town?
Some say they get 19.4 something.
After buying 30 cedis?
So they're wondering what the other 6 are going to do.
Well, perhaps the ECG is beginning to run some some kind of an insurance system.
Can you imagine?
So you buy 30, you get 19, then the 11 cedis is put down for you.
In future, of course.
In future.
So when you need it, you come and knock on their door and then they'll give it to you. But the PURC has given both NEDCO and ECG, an ultimatum. So it's just coming off from yesterday. When we were leaving, we gave our audience an ultimatum to stay because we're the best. So today, PURC says, fix the problem by Friday. Everybody's talking about it.
Restore our stolen credits. Let me put it that way.
And then they're saying that they will actually try and rebate some of the credit. So we'll talk about it, and then we have a resource person to actually explain the dynamics and everything to us today.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Welcome to JN Interactive. My name is Marian Toure. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we are still talking about the ECG. The PURC has given ECG and NEDCO an ultimatum to fix all of the problems with our prepaid meters by Friday. So I'll announce all the social media tools that you need to get in touch with us before we continue with the show. If you're on Facebook, it's facebook.com/joynewsontv. So please like our page, comment on every post that we put there, and we will share your comments with the rest of the world. We tweet at Joy News on TV. I am also on Twitter, by the way, and I tweet at MNToure. The hashtag to follow will be JNInteractiveGH. Please remember to put all your comments under that hashtag so that it will be easier for us to pick everything up and then read it all at once. If you're sending us an email, please use joynewsim@multitvworld.com, and the WhatsApp number, the new one, which you're using now, is 0260-518-801. And JN Interactive is where tech meets news to set the agenda. So the whole week, I think probably coming off from Friday until now, we are setting the agenda. We are talking about what you're talking about, which you should be talking about. So if you get all that agenda setting role there. And the PURC, of course, Public Regulatory Commission, has criticized the power distribution companies for what, in their words, is woefully unacceptable problems with the use of some prepaid meters. And they are asking the ECG and NEDCO, which is the Northern Electricity Development Company, to roll out an action plan on how it intends to address some problems reported by customers. And some of the problems which they have identified so far include retrospective billing, high failure rate of fuses in some prepaid meters in some areas in Legon and Kwabenya, and also problematic developments of prepaid meters at Botiano and Teshinungwa. And they also, cite inadequate training for frontline staff and, credit vendors. All of these problems the PURC says it has identified, and they did this during a monitoring exercise conducted since it endorsed a 78.9% increase in tariffs. And it begs the question why they didn't do all of this before actually going ahead to endorse the 78.9% increase. You would think that as a utility provider who has our best interest at heart, if Ghanaians are complaining, then they probably would say, let's go ahead and do our own feasibility study before we go, do all of this. But they went ahead and then did it anyway. Now they have found out the issues, ongoing right now. We'll take our first video block. We've been out there. You are part of this show. In fact, this show is all about you, and it's about what you are talking about, which we also amplify for you. So we are asking so far for you to tell us if you can even recall how much money you have lost so far since you got your prepaid meter. This is what you had to say in our first video blog.
A lot. I think like 200 Ghana or 300 Ghana, depending on the gadget that people have. It takes a lot of energy and it runs down easily.
Me per se, I don't use the prepaid, but my sister uses it. She once complained that she bought 30 cedis worth of prepaid credit, but within a day it's all got finished. But other times too, it helps because when you are leaving, you switch off all your electrical gadgets, and by the time you come, you have enough credits, you use it, but sometimes it's too costly. Electricity Company of Ghana, they have to do something about it.
Where they do the placement is not the best, as in outside the homes of the users of the prepaid. Assuming you're in the house in the night and your light goes out, you have to walk all the way from your house to the prepaid. Some are really lengthy. The distance from the houses to some places are really lengthy, and it's very dangerous, especially when you live in a danger zone. It's very dangerous. Secondly, damaging. Okay, we hearing bends and other things from certain places, and it's not the best. To me, the old one should be kept. The old prepaid should be kept because it's convenient. It's in your house. You get the credit. You upload it there and then. But walking from your house to a distance nearby is what? It's inconvenient. And moreover, you see, just on a pole, you see 4 or 3. I don't know how they did the placement, but it's like overloading of the meters that brings about the bends.
We used to buy 20 cedis for 1 week. Now within the last few days, we bought 20 cedis, and just after 3 days, it was off. So we're all surprised, and a colleague stated that probably it was due to the recent increment and should I call it the tax? Right, so I took it upon myself and then went to the ECG vending operator and then find out from her. And she mentioned that, well, it was due to the tax. Initially, I suspected it was a fault on the meter, but the lady confirmed that it wasn't a fault, but it was the tax increment. And then she further stated that after first purchase of a new month, the 78.9% or so will be deducted from what you purchase for the first month, and subsequently nothing again is deducted until the month ends. So subsequently we went there and then bought, and we haven't had any further problem apart from the first purchase of the first month of the month. Yes.
And of course, most of you have been sharing your comments with us on social media as well, so I'll take some of them. And today we've tied it in with something that we expected to actually affect, and we are asking what issues you're having with your landlord or co-tenants regarding your electricity since the recent tariff hikes. And we wanted you to share your stories with us, and a lot of you have come through. Na says, a lot. Wish I'm not in Ghana, which means you don't even want to go there. Christian Salvo says, well, as for me, I'm staying in my home, so I don't have any issues with a landlord or landlady, but the bills are too high to bear, therefore the government must do something about it. Draw the ladder. My landlord called a general meeting and said, if you cannot pay the new bills, then there is a guest house just behind the main street. We're really suffering, and I'm sure you would have had to pay so much money for the guest house, so it would be easier for you to stay in your own home, the rented apartments, rather than go and stay in a guest house. Baba Musa Tamale says, concerning the tariff adjustments, for me it is not just enough to say we can't pay. We should rather demand for better and reliable supply of these utility services. As Ghanaians, we either have to sacrifice to keep the country moving forward for a better future, or we choose not to sacrifice and reject the utility tariff increments and get back to the days of doomsaw, day in, day out. Max Billion Techimenson says, wow, we are crying for mercy, but no avail for it. Roland Yeboah Fine Boy says, my landlord is good. He doesn't even stay in town, so I'm a tenant and a landlord to myself. Oh, fantastic. Good for you. Issa says, they have told us that we have to increase the amounts that we used to pay. And that's the issue here, that what has the utility rate got to do with your rent? Because if the rate has gone up, and you're having to pay more each month for your electricity bill anyway, do you still have to go and pay more for your rent? Does your electricity bill affect your rent rate? I think we should interrogate this further and talk about it here sometime. Newton Jefford says, as for me, I don't have any issues with my landlord, rather my co-tenants who always use a lot of gadgets, but want the bill to be shared equally. I am sure that perhaps you need a meeting with your landlord so that you can sit down and share this equitably. Yeboah, Roland Yeboah, fine boy. Mariam, this is not part of what we're doing right now. I think I'll skip that. But thank you, by the way. Kennedy Asare Queen says, I haven't yet paid my bill, so I don't have any issues for now. Roland said, anyway, my problem isn't about the increment, but it is about quality of service. You can imagine I still get low current every 10 minutes. That is my problem. So we'll go and take our next video blog, and we are asking, the ECG has proposed that they would rebate you for every penny that you have lost, provided you can prove that you actually have lost some money using the prepaid metering system. We've been out there and we're asking you what you think about the rebate system. Let's take our next video blog.
It will be a hectic task. I don't know how possible it is. But if they want to do it, the people are ready to take it. The people will be happy to take it, but I don't see how it will work. It can't be physical cash. I'm sure they will refund in maybe units on their prepaid meters. It can't be physical cash.
I think now that the harm has already been done, so there is not necessary for them to refund the money. But I think that maybe they should change it. We should come back to our normal electricity that we use. But they should educate us on how to use the electricity wisely. But I think the prepaid, it's too costly. The prepaid is very costly.
Yeah, we'll take it back, but how they will distribute it will be another problem. So my suggestion would be that they should refund all those who are complaining about that. They should give them extra units because they can't go and give them the money individually. So they should find a way of adjusting it or giving them units to solve that problem.
And how are they going to pay the money back? By refunding in a form of credit or actual cash? I don't think it's possible. I don't think ECG can do that. Because it's cheating. If they can sincerely, give us the credit they've jilted us from, then I think it's going to be the best. Because it's not the best. And people who don't have money are really struggling with this new thing. Because if initially you used to buy 80 CDs, then you have to be buying around 160 Ghana CD plus. And it's not fair. And we all know the economy is really hard right now. It's not the best.
Knowing very well that it is just a too much increment for Ghanaians, it will be good on their part to make a refund for us.
So most of you agree that there should be rebates, but obviously the dynamics we are all confused about so far. But we are trying to reach my resource person, who is the PR manager for the headquarters here in Accra for the ECG, Dan Ejelabi, to explain some of these things to us. So hopefully we can reach him and then put all of these questions to him. I'll take some more of your comments whilst we wait to get in touch with him. Osei says, even if it was war with the old tariffs, so this new tariff is going to be wild with those of us who are using the post-paid system. God save us from this wicked politicians who most don't pay bills. Isa says, Marian, take your time and pronounce my name correctly. I'm sorry, it's not about not pronouncing it correctly. You have sent this one before. I don't know how. Gurangu. If there's a phonetic pronunciation for your name, please send it. Kulo Isa Ibn Ali Gurangu. Is that how you say it? If it's your real name, then really long. So I get just the Isa. That's why I keep using just the Isa. I can't use all of that, I'm afraid. Flint Papa says, the least said about the bills, the better. Come and see fights in my house. One funny thing, though, is that government won't reduce the tariffs. Yes, government is adamant. The more you use the current, the more you pay. Isa again. Newton Jefford says, energy efficiency starts with the consumer, but some people in my house use power as if they are the ones generating the power. They can play music throughout the night. Of course, I'm sure they'll say they're paying for it. So if they're paying for it, why then shouldn't they use it as they please? Malabar Anderson Jr., where are we going? Is the president paying any bills? And if no, what is he using his salary for? You may have to ask him that. Kelly Bliss, it's wahala. What's more, we don't even get a better service. Oh, why? Oh, why? I really don't know why. I wish I knew why. Let's try and get some more of your comments that are coming in right now on the same issue, whilst we try to reach a resource person to help us with some answers to some of the questions that you have been asking, especially on the way forward, how they're going to calculate all of these, bills for you to get your rebates back. So I ended with a Malaba. So Kwame says the increment is too much. The government should do something about it. Derry Juliet, most landlords are using this as a lucrative business where their tenants do not even see the bills but are asked to pay. Most landlords factor their own cost for tenants to pay for them. I don't think that is fair at all. And so perhaps you should call for a meeting with your landlord so that he can show you the bills at least. And then you can share it equitably. If someone is using more gadgets, they should pay according to the gadgets that they use. If you're using less, I don't see why you should pay more. Amenu Adam says the PRC board should be reconstituted because they are not competent. Austin says the bills nowadays are huge. Austin again, we need reduction. Mr. President should do something about it. And those are your comments that have been coming through. And I'm trying to reach, we are trying to reach Dan J. Labi, who is a PR manager for ECG headquarters here in Accra. But apparently the line is not going through. He said he will be driving and so he will pack to pick our calls. So we will try again and reach him so that I can put some of your questions to him, especially your question about how the rebate for customers will work, how they are intending to do that, and everything, whether you need proof that you actually bought credit. But I am sure that because it's a system, it's a metering system, they would have a log of everything that you have put there, and they would also have a log of what you have bought. And so if there's a disparity between the two figures, then they would know that yes, you have actually been given less than you have actually paid for, and so they would be able to rebate some of your money to you. And they also would have wanted to ask him whether the rebate will be a one-off or they would put it on, let's say, a lot of credits that you recharge in subsequent months, to say that every recharge that you come and buy, we will give you, let's say, 5 CDs on top of it, depending on how much you have lost. If you have lost, let's say, 200 CDs, then we'll do 10 a month or 10 per purchase until we have actually exhausted all the funds that you have paid. And the show actually thrives on you. It's rather unfortunate that Mr. Ajay is not picking up his phone so we can speak to him and ask all of these questions that you have been putting through to us here on JN Interactive. So I'll see if some more of your comments have dropped so that I can take it before we go. But if they haven't, then we will wrap up. We have 48,000 people, liking our page, and a little over 2,000 talking about us at this particular time. And Bright Anful will join me so that we can do the wrapping up together on the show today. And I think some more comments have dropped. The bills are very high. That's what Isaac Ofori Anang is saying. And also, I think one also dropped, which was Julius. I think it was Julius. Yeah, but Bright Anful has joined me, so we would wrap up this show. Welcome back.
Right, and of course we'll be telling you more about the PRC's decision not to review the tariffs downwards, as well as other interesting stories coming up right after 8 p.m. But right after here, Joy News Exclusive is coming up with Steve Auntie. My name is Bright Anamfo.
And as always, my name is Marian Toure, and I'm giving another ultimatum to stay with us because you know we are the best. Have a good evening.